Dr. Rosie Kuhn, and this podcast series is Aging Like a Guru. Who, me? Yes, you and me and everyone else. But part of aging like a guru is the notion that we are humans having a spiritual experience and we are spiritual beings having a human experience. It's both, isn't it? And as we're in this human experience and as we're actually in a spiritual experience at the same time, we're on a spiritual journey. We're on an adventure on a spiritual level that we're not rarely aware of and very little consciousness about. And for me, what that means is that everything that I engage in, every endeavor I take on, whether it's painting or writing, coaching, being with my children, being outdoors, is there's a potential for a spiritual practice, a spiritual focus, and being present to what is in the moment. My friend Carrie was a hospice worker for many years, and she said to me once that it just really was just kind of didn't get it for a while, that most people that she supported in their death process as a hospice worker, most people didn't even begin their spiritual work until the last 2 weeks of their life. Like that's when the most spiritual progress was made. That was her perspective. But gosh, it makes sense that most of us don't really prepare for the inevitability of that place where the inevitable happens, that we are dying. We are leaving this body, this reality, and moving to another. And until most of us get to a point where that's real, it's not real, it's just theoretical. So so that made me think about how we present ourselves to life in general, and how we focus on spiritual practices of everyday life. We think of spiritual practices being like meditation or reading spiritual books or going to church and communities, doing yoga. But for me, spiritual practices take place every single day in everything we do. And all of that inevitably prepares us for how we be with the last few years or few moments of our life when we're having to let go of what we cannot control. A friend of mine, Ruby, she's visiting her aunt in Tennessee, and she said that her aunt, who's 90, was saying, my life is going to hell in a handbasket. And it was like they kind of laughed about it, but it's like inside that experience of hell in a handbasket is a woman who doesn't know how to face the inevitability of her own being, in the sense that as she continues to decline in energy and capacities to be in her body, something is shifting that she may not know how to do or how to be with. My sense is that we have an opportunity along the way that can prepare us for that moment when we find ourselves in the hell in the handbasket aspect of aging. There's certain aspects of life that happen that are, for many of us, hell in a handbasket. When if a parent dies when we're a child, or when we get a disease we weren't expecting, or someone we love has a disease, or you get fired from a job where you depended on for the stability of you and your family. Those are all areas where we experience hell in a handbasket. And how we face those moments of life, how we face the inevitability of being in those places that truly we're out of control, we're powerless over our circumstances. That's how we be when we're facing death, if you will, or facing our aging years, when our capacities and capabilities do decline. So there's many opportunities for us to grow ourselves, or at least notice how we be when life doesn't turn out the way we expect. Um, we have, with global warming occurring, or supposedly occurring, there's so many atrocities that are happening environmentally that are frightening us. And hurricanes or tornadoes that are devastating people's communities, that's hell in a handbasket. And how do you and how do others face that moment, the be with, if you will. You're in it, and how do you be in it? Some of us be in it with faith, and know the outcome is, of a spiritual, let go and let God, if you will, that the outcome will be what it is. For others, are angry and they blame and shame the world or shame other people. For others, they feel guilty and they must deserve this somehow, or unworthy of health and well-being, or unworthy of a great life. So some people take it on as a shaming unworthiness. Other people blame and guilt others. Some people feel depressed and just don't know how to cope. And these are little opportunities, and not necessarily little opportunities, but opportunities where we can grow our capacities and watch ourselves. How do we be present when life is throwing us circumstances that are beyond our control? I have gone through this many times with myself, and it's not one time thing, especially if we've not learned the lessons. But I've gone through these moments many times where I've been thrown into just the worst despair because I didn't know. I wasn't expecting life to throw me the curveballs, or I wasn't expecting life to be at times hell in a handbasket. So we have this opportunity to be present with us. And sometimes it's important to say this, that sometimes you need help. Sometimes you need support from people who are professionals, coaches, therapists, psychiatrists, psychologists, or counselors, social workers. Lots of people that that are there to support you through these kinds of processes. Because the truth of how we be human is far beyond most of us in terms of our capacity to know how to be in life. So these are a lot of words that are basically saying, hey, aging is what happens, and where in our life do we already experience the same kinds of issues that happen when we're aging? So for instance, when we start to decline in our abilities of hearing or sight, or our ability to uh, not pee in our pants, those kinds of things that are just, for some, very inevitable, or dealing with chronic pain. These are elements that are part of the decline of our aging bodies. And how we be inside that is part of the spiritual practice that I'm talking about. Do we create an attitude of despair and depression? There's a lot of suicide that occurs for aging people because they don't know how to cope with the reality of life as it is in this body. So there's all kinds of possibilities for learning who you are now. Even you may be 20 listening to this. You might be 13. You might be 85. Every one of us has an opportunity to look at ourselves and go, wait, how am I looking at this? How am I choosing to be present to this circumstance? And am I my circumstance, or am I actually a human? Keep goofing up. Am I this spiritual being having a human experience? Um, and if I am a spiritual being, what's the point here? What's going on for me? What is this that I'm meeting? Who am I meeting here? What's the point here? Lots of people in their 40s and 50s who are at a point of a midlife crisis, if you will, or a crisis of meaning, or spiritual crisis. They go, well, what is this really about? Why am I here? And what's the point of all of this? And, what choices can I make? So as we're coming to the end of this podcast episode, I just want you to consider the possibility of being curious of who you are and what circumstances, what places in your life were hell in a handbasket, and how were you in those circumstances, in those situations, and what did you find were your qualities that were helpful and supportive, and what were the qualities that you were experiencing in yourself that didn't help you at all? And you might want to I think that's a great question, and see what you think about that for yourself. I'm not attached to you doing anything with this, except I'm attached to sharing perspectives that may help you kind of question your reality, and that you have choice and you're empowered to make a difference for yourself. All right. Thanks for being here, and I'll look forward to connecting with you very, very soon. All right. Bye for now.